The sun had barely risen over the small, quiet village of Norabad, painting the sky in soft shades of amber and rose, a palette of colors so gentle that even the birds seemed to pause before beginning their morning songs. In a weathered home at the end of a narrow lane, a frail woman named Fatima sat by the window. Her fingers, thin and trembling with age, clutched a tattered letter whose ink had faded over time, though the words were burned into her heart. The smell of cardamom tea filled the air, mingling with the scent of aged wood. Outside, life carried on, children's laughter echoed in the distance, goats bleated softly in nearby fields, and neighbors greeted one another as they began their day. But inside this small house, silence pressed in heavy, like a weight no sound could break. Fatima's entire world existed within the folds of that crumpled letter. She ran her fingers over its words as if trying to trace the very soul of the one who had written it. This letter, unlike the many before it, carried a darkness that time could never wash away. It was her son Ion's last letter. "Dearest Ami," it began in shaky handwriting, "I hope this letter finds you smiling, though I fear it will bring you tears. By the time you read this, I may not be there anymore. Please forgive me. Forgive me for leaving you so soon. I tried to fight, Ami, I really did. But life has a way of breaking even the strongest hearts." Fatima's vision blurred as she read those words for what must have been the 1000th time. Her lips trembled, her chest ached, and yet she couldn't stop. Reading his words made her feel close to him, like he was sitting beside her, laughing softly the way he used to when he was a boy. She pressed the letter to her heart and closed her eyes. The memories flooded back with painful clarity, memories of a time when laughter filled this very house. Fatima had been widowed young. Her husband passed away from illness when Ion was just 7 years old, and his little sister, Zoya, was barely 4. The grief of losing her husband had nearly broken her, but Fatima didn't allow herself to crumble. She knew she had 2 small lives depending on her. She became both mother and father, working tirelessly to feed and raise her children. Fatima would wake before dawn to knead dough, her hands aching from the cold, baking bread to sell in the village bazaar. In the evenings, she would sew clothes by candlelight, her tired eyes straining to see each stitch. Her days were filled with backbreaking labor, but her heart was filled with hope. She often told herself, if I can just give them a better life, if I can just hold on a little longer, maybe they won't know the pain I've known. Ion was a bright boy, always curious, always full of dreams. He would sit by her side while she worked and say, "Ami, one day I'll build you a house with big windows. You won't have to work anymore. You'll see the whole sky from your room." His voice had been full of conviction, his dreams bigger than Norabad itself. And Fatima believed him. She sacrificed everything to see those dreams come true. She sold the gold bangles her mother had given her on her wedding day to pay for his education. She skipped meals so she could send him to university in the bustling city. She watched with tears in her eyes as he boarded the bus to leave home, waving to her with a hopeful smile that masked the fear of leaving his small village behind. For years, Fatima's life revolved around his letters. Every few weeks, an envelope would arrive, carrying his words of love and gratitude. "I'm studying hard, Ami," he would write. "One day, I'll make you so proud." Those letters were her lifeline, proof that her sacrifices weren't in vain. She would sit by the window every evening, rereading his words by lantern light, smiling through her exhaustion. Each letter was a piece of him she could hold onto. But over time, the letters changed. They became shorter, hurried. His once cheerful handwriting seemed rushed, and though he always reassured her that he was fine, Fatima's heart sensed something was wrong. "I'm just busy with studies, Ami," he'd say. "Don't worry." But she did worry. A mother's heart always knows. Then one day, the letter came that shattered her world. In it, Ion confessed to the crushing weight he'd been carrying in silence. He spoke of feeling trapped, overwhelmed by expectations, drowning in loneliness in a city full of strangers. He wrote about how he'd tried to stay strong for her, how he didn't want to burden her with his pain, but the storm inside him had grown too heavy. The letter ended with a plea for forgiveness, a plea that tore through Fatima's soul like a blade. When Fatima finished reading that letter for the first time, she collapsed to the floor, her cries echoing through the empty house. Zoya held her tightly, both of them trembling in grief. The villagers came to mourn with them, bringing food and prayers, but no words could soothe a mother's broken heart. The funeral was simple, yet the sorrow was boundless. Fatima stood motionless, her face pale, her eyes hollow, her heart shattered into pieces too small to mend. Days turned into weeks, and grief clung to her like a shadow. But even in her pain, she couldn't ignore the truth Ion's letter revealed. There were others like him, silently suffering, carrying invisible burdens. Fatima refused to let her son's story end in silence. She turned her pain into purpose. She began speaking to the young people in her village, inviting them into her home, urging them to share their struggles. She wanted no other mother to feel the pain she had felt, no other child to feel as alone as Ion had. Her little home became a refuge, a place where the unheard found a voice, where tears were met with understanding instead of judgment. At first, only a few came. But word spread quickly, and soon, her home was filled with young men and women seeking comfort and guidance. Fatima would sit with them, hold their hands, and listen to their stories. She shared Ion's letter with them, not as a tale of tragedy, but as a lesson, that love must be spoken, that pain must be shared, that silence can be deadly. Years passed, and Fatima's home became known as the House of Hope. People traveled from neighboring towns just to speak to her. She asked for no payment. Her only request was that those she helped write letters to their loved ones, expressing their feelings openly. Over time, her home filled with thousands of letters, each one a testament to healing and connection. Letters of apology, letters of love, letters of pain and hope, they lined the shelves of her small house, turning it into a sanctuary of humanity. One rainy afternoon, a teenage boy knocked on her door, trembling and tearful. "Auntie," he whispered, "I was going to end my life today. But I remembered what you said about your son. I came here instead." Fatima wrapped him in her arms, tears streaming down her face. "You're not alone, Beta," she whispered. "You are loved, always." In that moment, she felt Ion's presence more strongly than ever. Her son's story was saving lives, even from beyond the grave. As the years went by, Fatima aged, her hair turning silver, her hands becoming frailer. But her spirit only grew stronger. She often sat by her window, gazing out at the courtyard where young people now gathered, laughing and sharing stories. The same window where she had once wept every night was now a window to hope. The framed letter sat on the windowsill, bathed in sunlight, a reminder of the journey she had taken, from unbearable grief to a purpose that touched thousands. When Fatima passed away peacefully in her sleep many years later, the entire village mourned deeply. People from distant towns came to pay their respects. They brought with them letters they had written because of her, letters that had saved their lives or healed their relationships. They placed them around her grave, creating a mountain of paper filled with love, sorrow, and gratitude. Fatima's story spread far beyond Norabad. News outlets picked it up, and soon, her story became a global inspiration. Her son's letter, once a symbol of loss, had become a catalyst for hope. Schools began mental health programs inspired by her work. People across the world started writing letters again, choosing heartfelt words over silence. Ion's memory lived on, immortalized not by tragedy, but by the thousands of lives his story touched. Years later, Norabad became known as the Village of Letters. Tourists came not for scenic views or monuments, but for the small house at the end of a dusty lane, where a mother's love had changed the world. Inside, Ion's final letter remained on display, its edges yellowed with time, its ink faint but legible. People would stand before it, tears in their eyes, and whisper prayers for a boy they had never met but who had saved them all. This story is a reminder that love must never be left unspoken, that pain must never be carried alone. It is a call to reach out, to listen, to care. Because sometimes, a single conversation, a single letter, a single act of kindness can save a life. And that is the legacy of Fatima and her beloved Ion, a legacy of hope born from heartbreak, a legacy that proves even in the darkest moments, love is powerful enough to light the way.